of a world where the roar of Harley Davidson's engines fades into history, a distant memory of what once was. Hard to picture, right? Well, that's exactly what's at risk after a series of trade wars and tariffs, some of which were pushed by none other than Mr. Donald Trump. Harley Davidson, a symbol of American pride and craftsmanship, found itself caught in the crossfire of political decisions that sent shockwaves through its global operations. So the big question is, did Trump's economic moves unknowingly set the stage for Harley's downfall?
Harley Davidson is a true American icon, one of the greats. Your motorcycles have carried American service members in the war and the wars. They take care of our police officers, and I see it so often. Whenever I go, whenever there's a motorcycle group, oftentimes it's a Harley, and the sound of that Harley is a little different, I have to tell you. It's really good. So thank you, Harley Davidson, for building things in America. I think you're going to even expand. I know your business is now doing very well, and there's a lot of spirit right now in the country that you weren't having so much in the last number of months that you have right now. You see what's happening.
Harley Davidson, founded in 1903, isn't just a motorcycle company. It's a symbol of everything America stands for: freedom, rebellion, and the pursuit of the American dream. When you think of Harley, you're not just thinking about a bike, you're thinking about the roar of its V-twin engine, the open road, and a community that shares a passion for adventure. A Harley isn't just a mode of transportation, it's an identity. It's about belonging to something bigger, something that says, I'm free and I don't care about what the woke mob tells me to ride.
The first decision is protecting our customers in the market. So that is us carrying that $2,200 per bike cost. And then obviously we have to figure out ways to mitigate that cost, because we'd rather invest that money in things that will help us grow the business, not just maintain the business. We have to do what we have to do based on the facts and circumstances before us, and we're doing that. Rather not be spending our time and our money this way right now, but we're doing what we have to do.
But of course, like any icon, Harley has faced its share of challenges. The company has always had fierce competition, particularly from global brands like Honda and Yamaha, which, let's face it, are cheaper and in some cases, more technologically advanced. So, Harley has had to innovate without losing that classic American craftsmanship that made it a legend in the first place. It's a tricky balance, especially when the market is flooded with options that cater to the budget-conscious consumer who might not care about tradition or authenticity. Also, speaking of authenticity, Harley has had its ups and downs with government intervention. In the 1980s, the company was getting crushed by Japanese motorcycles that were flooding the market. It looked like Harley was headed for bankruptcy until Ronald Reagan stepped in and imposed a 45% tariff on motorcycles with engines larger than 700cc. While the left-wing crowd might have cried protectionism, that tariff was exactly what Harley needed to survive. The company was able to regroup and focus on its core values, building high-end, American-made bikes that would, in turn, continue to define American freedom and craftsmanship. But not all government intervention has been so helpful. Fast forward to the Trump years, and Harley was once again caught in the middle of a political storm.
It is going ahead and shifting production of its motorcycles that makes for European customers, literally moving it out of the United States and setting up shop overseas to avoid the tariff and ultimately save money and customers. Now, we learned that Harley Davidson is making this drastic move to literally hold on to its second biggest sales market, and that's Europe. And this is after the EU raised tariffs from 6% to 31% on motorcycles that are exported from the U.S. Now, Harley says the tariff raises the price by about $2,200 on every motorcycle that's sold in Europe. So that really cuts its competitive strength in Europe if their motorcycles are more than what's already on the market. So you look at the security filing, Harley Davidson said this. It said it believes that the tremendous cost increase, if it's passed on to its dealers and retail customers, it would wind up having an immediate and lasting detrimental impact to its business in the region. So
this time due to tariffs on steel and aluminum that were meant to protect American industries. But the result? Harley found itself between a rock and a hard place. Its costs rising at home while foreign markets, particularly in Europe, began to look less appealing. Funny how the America First policies didn't always work out for an iconic American company, right? When Donald Trump stepped into the Oval Office, he made it clear that his administration's top priority was putting American businesses first. One of his most aggressive tactics? Tariffs. The idea was simple: slap taxes on foreign-made goods to make them more expensive and, in turn, make American-made products more attractive to consumers. On paper, it sounded great, but like many things with Trump, the execution wasn't quite as smooth as the rhetoric. Harley Davidson, reliant on steel and aluminum, found itself in a tough spot when Trump's tariffs drove up production costs. While meant to boost American steel, the tariffs made it harder for Harley to stay competitive, especially against foreign brands with lower costs. Caught between Trump's America First policy and the demands of the global market, Harley struggled to balance its American roots with rising expenses. The bigger issue wasn't just the tariffs themselves, but the ripple effect they caused. While Trump's trade war aimed to protect American jobs and companies, Harley's struggle was a reminder that sometimes the cure can be worse than the disease. It was the ultimate case of trying to help while inadvertently hurting. The European Union wasn't too thrilled about Trump's tariffs, especially the ones on steel and aluminum. In retaliation, the EU slapped a 31% tariff on motorcycles made by Harley Davidson. Ouch. Europe is a huge market for Harley, second only to the US, and suddenly, their bikes were looking a lot less attractive to European customers. So what did Harley do? They made the tough decision to shift some production overseas, specifically to Thailand, so they could sidestep those tariffs and keep costs down. Harley Davidson's decision to move production overseas didn't sit well with loyal American customers. Trump blasted the move, accusing the company of abandoning its American roots, which fueled outrage among patriotic fans. Many saw it as a betrayal, with some even calling for a boycott, feeling Harley had turned its back on the symbol of American freedom. It's funny though, Harley wasn't exactly in a position to win this battle. They were getting squeezed from both sides, higher production costs in the US due to the tariffs, and retaliation from the EU, making it even harder to sell bikes overseas. For Harley, it was like being caught in a vice grip of economic and political pressure. So in the end, they did what was best for business. They made the tough call to protect their bottom line, even if it meant taking some heat from the American public. The real issue with these tariffs wasn't just the taxes on steel and aluminum, it was the ripple effect that hit Harley Davidson's global strategy. Think about it. Harley is a company that prides itself on its American-made motorcycles, but it also has to compete in a global market. With costs rising in the US thanks to tariffs on raw materials, Harley found it harder and harder to stay competitive. It wasn't just about competing with Japanese brands like Honda and Yamaha anymore. Now, they were facing higher costs on the very materials they needed to build their bikes. Harley Davidson's decision to move some production overseas was driven by rising costs, but it also made its bikes less appealing abroad. The EU's 31% tariff hit hard, especially since Europe was a key revenue source. Harley faced a tough choice: raise prices, alienate foreign customers, or go global and risk upsetting American fans. Caught in a perfect storm of rising costs and declining sales, Harley was stuck in an economic tug-of-war. For a company that had prided itself on representing the American spirit, Harley Davidson was suddenly caught between trying to protect its legacy and adapting to the pressures of global trade. It's a tough spot for any business to be in, but it's clear that the tariff fallout was one of the hardest challenges Harley had faced in decades. The American-made motorcycle that once symbolized freedom was now caught up in a whirlwind of global economics and political maneuvering, leaving the company with some serious decisions to make about its future. Here's the thing about Harley Davidson: it's more than just a motorcycle brand. For decades, it's been a symbol of American craftsmanship, freedom, and the open road. When you think of Harley, you think of good old-fashioned American engineering, right? So when the company decided to shift some of its production overseas to Thailand, it felt like a gut punch to a lot of loyalists. I mean, how could Harley, a company that's practically the definition of American pride, move part of its operations to another country to dodge tariffs and cut costs? It wasn't just about business for many of these customers, it was about something bigger. It was about national identity. For the hardcore Harley fans, it felt like the brand was losing its soul. Sure, we're all used to hearing about companies outsourcing to save a buck, but this felt different. There's a sense of pride that comes with buying an American-made product, and Harley was supposed to represent that. So what are your thoughts on this? Let us know in the comments below.